Hello, good morning. Hi, Beth.
Hello, good
So,
evening.
yeah, little time difference here. So, on my end in Germany, it is the 21st of June, Sunday, and it's a little bit after 9:30 in the morning. So, my day starts and yours ends. Um,
Yes, we're 7:30 p.m. So
see,
yeah,
there we
nearly
go.
bedtime.
Yeah, nearly bedtime. Thank you so much for finding the time to have this interview with me. So, hello everybody, and today we have Beth with us, and she is story number 9 in this series. Well, without further ado, Beth, please tell us about yourself. Just who are you?
Mm. Well, as you've said, I'm Beth. I am originally from the UK. I grew up in Huddersfield, which is in West Yorkshire, but lived in Brighton on the south coast for about 8 or 9 years before I moved to New Zealand, which is where I've been for the last 3.5 years. I live in Hamilton, which is really close to Auckland, so close to the top of the North Island. And I live here with my partner. We've got a lovely dog called Norman. Um, I am a recruiter by trade, but have lots and lots of hobbies. I like hiking and cooking and exercise and singing and
Oh,
performing. So yeah, I'm a very busy girl.
awesome. So, and how, I've never been to New Zealand. How is it? How's the change from UK to New Zealand?
It's amazing. Yeah, I will probably be here forever. It's the
Oh,
best, one of the best decisions I ever made.
oh,
It's very similar in terms of culture, but everyone is much more relaxed in the way they do things, and much more, I think, accepting um, of people's differences a lot of the time. And it's just a much more relaxed way of life.
okay. Yeah. So why not, right? It's really, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And tell me, so pre-COVID-19, what was
Mm.
it that you did? I mean, you already told me a little bit about it, but has there been any change? So before it all began and now, did you have to reinvent yourself or no?
Kind of. I'm We're kind of having to reinvent ourselves every day at the moment because the market is so different. So I'm a recruiter, so what I do is find the very best people for companies. So a company will come to me and say, "Hey, I need X person," and I will go and find that person and everything that comes with that. So over lockdown, that didn't exist. So I was training somebody throughout lockdown, which was really good. It kept me occupied, kept my mind occupied. And then now that we're back in the office and back to it, my job is still to find people, but there are fewer roles and lots more people looking for those roles. And companies are taking much longer to make decisions about things, which is understandable because the economy is so unpredictable right now that to spend money on things is quite scary, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the story everywhere else in the world, right?
Mm,
And it's going to be one of the many hardships of the people finding a job and also the people obviously giving a job. Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's scary because I mean, there's been lots of redundancies already, but this is only the start. There's going to be a second wave of redundancies. Um, so it's really interesting to watch it play out.
Play out. Yeah. And thankfully, like just like you said, it's you're watching it, so fortunate.
Mm,
Let's keep
yeah,
it like that. Yeah. And
yeah. Fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. And moving a little bit away from you just for a little bit,
Mm.
can you tell me just what is happening in New Zealand right now? So what is the most important thing? What's the topic? What's the news that everybody's talking about or is concerned about? Just tell me a little
Mm.
bit about that.
Yeah, so we of course reached 0 cases about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and went down to level 1, which is essentially normal life, but with border controls still. But the border controls have been relaxed. So there are New Zealanders coming back from overseas that weren't able to do so over lockdown, and there are people coming to New Zealand for compassionate reasons, so funerals, whatever. So there are more people coming into the country, and so now we have started to get cases again. So the first two was two English women, and they were allowed compassionate leave from quarantine to go to a funeral, but they hadn't been tested. They saw people along the way, and it was a bit of a disaster. Luckily, it doesn't look like they passed it on to anybody, but they tested positive. And today we had our 6th and 7th case, so we've got 7 now.
And
but
they're all
they're
important.
all big. Yeah, so they're all from overseas. So we've had 2 from the UK, 2 from India, I think, 1 from Pakistan. Yeah, so they're all people coming in, and initially the quarantine I don't think was being managed particularly well. But now, of course, because there was that breach and everyone's suddenly like, oh my God, this could be the second wave, it's being really well managed now. So we're likely to see more cases as more people come back, but everyone's feeling a bit nervous because going from 0 to having some again is a bit scary.
Especially because your lockdown was pretty intensive, right? Very harsh, let's say. So you did your part, and I assume it's a bit. I mean, you were in a good streak, right? 0 cases. I think from 25, 26 days, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 24,
24 days.
that we had none. Yeah. But it's bound to happen as soon as you let people back in. There is still a pandemic raging over the planet. Just because we're doing quite well doesn't mean that the rest of the world is. So if people are coming in, then the chances are some of them will have the virus.
Exactly. Yeah. And just going back a little bit to the lockdown, just talk to me a little bit about what were the first measures that New Zealand did to stop COVID-19? Just what, if you remember the dates when it was, and just your opinions about them also.
Yeah, so I can't remember exact dates, but I think full-blown lockdown started on the 23rd of March, around then. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks prior to that was when the levels system was introduced. And so we went straight in at level 2, which meant you've got to social distance, you need to track where you go. If you can work from home, you should. But it was all quite relaxed, really. And then it was on the 21st of March, I think, that there was the announcement, okay, well, on Wednesday, we're going into level 4, which is full blown, not allowed to leave your house except to go to the doctor or to go to the supermarket.
Essential.
Yeah. So, but I've been keeping an eye on lockdown, I suppose, across the world. Of course, being from the UK, I've got lots of family over there. And lockdown in the UK it seemed to be more of just a suggestion.
If you'd like to.
If you want to, you can. Whereas here it was, people were getting arrested and charged for breaching lockdown. So it was pretty serious.
And now that you mentioned it, it must have been a bit, I assume, at least I speak from my own experience also, it must have been a little bit weird to be in one country with one set of rules and more, quote unquote, serious about it. watching the UK. Can you tell me just a little bit, how did you deal with seeing from across the world what was happening, speaking with your family and friends, and yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, everything's weird at the moment. That's just
One more
that's just the
thing.
way life is. But throughout, I have felt really, really fortunate to be in New Zealand. You know, while lockdown was long and tough, it was for the best, and the country knew that. Speaking to my family in the UK, everyone is just absolutely despairing of how the whole thing has been handled. And you know, everyone's kind of envious of me being in New Zealand and having a sensible government doing sensible things. So it was weird that my friends and family could go and do stuff when I couldn't, but I knew it was definitely for the best. I think every there has been in the UK, around quarantine and around rules and around lots of different things, you know, the border closures, etc. There's been something comparable happen in New Zealand, but it's been handled in the total opposite way, and it's worked. So it's been, I mean, it's just really interesting to see how different governments have handled it. It's really telling of what governments are actually good at what they're doing, and which ones aren't.
And I mean, obviously, you know, New Zealand has been praised all around the world. Even for it's been a while. It's not only now that you had 0 cases, but even not only when you had those 24 days of 0 cases, but even much earlier on. And at least from what we could see from the outside, is that it had a lot of to do with the trust that was given to the government and given back, right, to the people, and the communication. Am I right in having understood it that way?
Yeah, I mean, the communication was just absolutely impeccable. So 1 p.m. every single day, there was Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister obviously, and Ashley Bloomfield, who's the Director General of Health, giving an update, and having all of the information that we would need to know what was going on. And I mean, you know, the world knows Jacinda Ardern is an incredible communicator. She speaks to the people, so to speak, as normal people rather than from a pedestal. You know, you are the minions and I am up here. She really, really engages with people, and I think the entire country responded really well to that.
It made a difference, right? Because it meant unity, and
Yeah,
that is what
and
the pandemic. What? Sorry, what?
the language was the language that they used was so clever. You know, they called us a team of 5 million. We had to stay in our bubbles. That they used really clever language to make it feel like we were all in it together, which I think is what a lot of other governments have lacked. There hasn't been the, you know, this is for all of us. It's just a, you know, stay home, save lives, but it's not really impactful as much as a team of 5 million makes you feel really included.
Yeah, makes you feel as you're part of something, and as cheesy as it sounds, part of the greater good together, and actually doing good to get good, right?
Yeah.
Not the other part. Oh yeah, and tell me, just to finish with well, at least to finish with this part, tell me about mask wearing, so face coverings. How has New Zealand reacted to it? What do they do, and how has the government explained, or have they? What's the face mask situation?
Yeah,
Face covering.
it's never been mandatory. I actually, to this date, have not worn a mask. I haven't needed to. So yeah, you could wear one if you wanted to. So people were wearing them to supermarkets and the like.
So you have to wear
But
them at the supermarket, or no?
no,
Not
so
even.
people have been doing if they want to, but you don't have to. There's been lots of, you know, don't touch your face cough into your elbow or sneeze into your elbow or whatever. But yeah, masks have never been mandatory.
Okay, but you have had people doing it voluntarily, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's been a huge range of how people respond. I mean, the first time I went to the supermarket during lockdown, there were some people, shorts and t-shirt, whatever, didn't really care. And then some people in like full hazmat suits, mask on, gloves on, everything covered. So yeah, people have been doing, I guess for their own comfort, but it's never been something that we've had to do.
But then I assume, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves also. I assume it was the fact that social distancing was a big deal, correct?
Yeah, very much so. So if you went into a shop, you couldn't be near other people. If you went to the doctor, you had to queue outside. And realistically, there are fewer people in New Zealand. So it's easier to stay away than, say, if you were in London, which has got double the population of the entire country of New Zealand. So, that does play into it. But the fact that we were socially distancing the whole time meant that we didn't really need masks.
Exactly, yeah. Because that's the thing. Mask wearing is part of the solution. It's one piece of the puzzle. It's not the solution. And if you're wearing masks, first of all, it should be everybody wearing masks if you're going to be wearing masks, right? And then doesn't mean we can hug each other just because we're wearing masks, right? Like,
exactly. It's not like a protective bubble, just one little piece of cloth.
Yeah.
You've still got to be hugely careful, even if you're wearing a mask.
Exactly. So, yeah, understandable if you adhere to the social distancing and do it well and are able to do it well, then it is, like you said, your choice whether or not you want to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And now just changing subjects again a little bit, always staying with the pandemic, but tell me, when was it that you realized that what was going on was a little bit more serious than what you thought or what your family and friends thought, maybe in the UK? Was there a particular situation, a moment, maybe something you saw in the news or an article you read, or just a realization when you were doing something? What's your story?
Yeah, I can actually remember it really vividly. I was quite relaxed about the whole thing. I hate to say because I really shouldn't have been. But I remember it was about a week and a half before lockdown started, and I was at the supermarket, so my local one, so just one of the small, everyday supermarkets that you can get a few bits at. And it was mayhem, absolute chaos. There were people everywhere. The shelves were empty. And I remember speaking to one of the checkout girls, because when she was putting my things through, and she looked absolutely terrified. And I said to her, "Are you okay?" And she was like, "No, this is so scary. I don't know what to do." And that was when I was like, "Oh my God, this is really serious." And then it all kind of snowballed from there, because it went from not that serious in New Zealand to serious really bloody quickly. And then suddenly we were in lockdown. But yeah, it was about a week and a half before that I was like, oh shit, this is actually quite bad.
Well, your moment was, yeah, like I guess a splash of really, really cold water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And staying, I mean, now that from that very moment at the supermarket when you realized, okay, this is real, this is serious, to all the measures that the government has done and how people have reacted and everything that has happened up to now, what you know and what you've seen also, because you also have the perspective of the UK, right? A lens into the UK. What are your hopes? What are your concerns? What is it that you think is going to happen in the next days, in the next weeks, either in the UK or New Zealand, or even both? And what is it that you obviously don't want to happen or you would like to happen? Just a little bit, what are your constant thoughts on this?
Mm. So I guess my worries at the moment are that there will be a second wave, because it's a real possibility. We all in New Zealand kind of felt bulletproof for a little while there because we had done so well. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, this could actually happen. Be careful. So I'm keeping a wary eye on what's going on there. And I mean, as for the UK, I don't think anything is going to calm down until there's a vaccine, realistically, because it's been handled so poorly. My hope is that there is a vaccine soon, because I was due to go back to the UK for a month last week. So I was supposed to leave last week, and obviously can't. So I really, really hope that in the next year and a half, whatever it ends up being, that I can go back, because I really, really miss my friends and family. So yeah, just cross fingers that the scientists are doing a really good job.
Yeah. I think that's what everybody is hoping. No, it's the hope that unites us, I think. But let's see. Let's really see what happens. And like you said, New Zealand and the 5 million people did very well, and I'm sure you can continue, right? They can continue. And just to finish our conversation, just a little bit philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
If you could give a message to Beth, to yourself in 14 days, what would you tell her?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. I would tell her to not worry. To don't waste the next 2 weeks worrying, because actually worrying doesn't do anything. And you're not going to change the outcome of anything by worrying. So just have fun and be sensible and be kind.
I like that. Be sensible, be kind, and yeah, I like that. Well, Beth, thank you very much for spending your evening with me and my morning.
My pleasure.
And yeah, it's been really lovely talking to you about New Zealand and a little bit about the UK. And we will see each other in 14 days.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.